I'd just like to welcome her up to the podium. I'm glad Helen got the apologies out of the way for me not being a photographer. So I think the work I'm going to talk about today is sort of touches on photography, and sometimes I actually use photography, but it's more around the fiction versus friction. And Helen, when she first asked me, I thought it was frictions about, and I thought, wow, yeah, that sounds just like me. So I thought, okay, I could do that, and then I realised the subtext. Never mind. But anyway, hopefully it will just throw it into the pot, you know. I should start with this image just because this is a piece that only exists in photographs. It's never been exhibited anywhere, and it's obviously site-specific. And a lot of the work I've made over the years deals with almost like very cliched images that we know so much through photography. Famous monuments from all over the world, although we haven't seen the Empire State Building perhaps ever in our reality, we've seen it through photographs, you know, or the same with Niagara Falls or any famous landmark. So this is a currency that I use in my work a lot. And this piece dates back to 1984, so it's a long time ago. This is my bathwater that's flooded a gutter. And these are famous monuments which I've cast in lead and then used them to block up the gutter. It's called drown monuments. I thought I like using cliche things just because they're a starting point, they're the things everybody knows about. And somehow I'm always trying to find the inverse of the monument, or the subconscious of the monument. A lot of my work has very odd processes involved. So often early works I would document the process, so as a proof that I did things, because I don't believe people would, you know, especially if they know me well, would stand on the edge of the White Cliffs of Dover, because I've got a terrible fear of heights. And what you can't see in this photograph is I've got a rope around my waist. It's because I'm frightened of throwing myself off the edge. And this is a piece called Words That Define Gravity. I made the definition of gravity in lead, in my own handwriting. And then I threw the dictionary definition of gravity off the White Cliffs of Dover, and then it was deformed by real gravity. And these words were completely unintelligible because I really had recorded the literal gravity. So I'm very often interested in literal things being just a starting point for them releasing their own subtext, as it were. I obviously had a photographer who's over here somewhere taking this photograph, who's also very frightened of heights and didn't have a rope round him. And this is a piece that must be one of my most well-known works, which is for a gallery in Chisenhale Gallery in London, which is a black box which has no natural light. And so I wanted to make a piece of work about a light source. And I got a garden shed and filled it with all the stuff you'd normally find in a garden shed, you know, sort of bikes, tools, overspill from the house. And it was almost like a universal cliche in a way. And I photographed it inside the gallery before the exhibition. So this image is part of the exhibition. It's the first thing you see as you come into the gallery. And it's this garden shed with a light inside it. And then the British Army sponsored me and blew it up for me. Although I've got this slide which was taken by a press photographer who gave me the image. I didn't record it for myself. It's almost like I wanted the explosion to be a subtext, and it's not something that could be shown in the exhibition. The explosion has to happen in people's minds. And then you actually walked around the corner from seeing the photograph of the shed intact into the gallery, and then you got the shed after. So it's like a before and after. I always love before and after photographs. And basically the explosions happened, and then all the fragments are suspended around the same light bulb as in the shed in the first photograph. Except now all the light comes out through the walls because they're much more porous. And what I did was formalise, although it wasn't very formal, I formalised the objects by putting small objects, then medium objects, then large objects, and then the wood on the outside of the shed. So it's almost like a formalisation of this explosion. It was called Coal Dot Matter and Exploded View. Actually, I don't really take photographs really very often now of my process, which perhaps I should, just for my own sort of sketchbook, because I'm usually so busy doing whatever it is to be done that I don't want to be worrying about taking photographs. But I've got lots of photographs of this day, which the army helped me, which was fantastic. There's reams of photographs of soldiers walking across the field picking up debris. And these, I like to talk about fiction and friction. I like the idea of friction in work. I like to put myself in situations where, of likely bedfellows, in a way that people who I'd never meet if I was in the art world. And the debate and the sometimes the conflict that occurs when you kind of step outside your comfort zone. And so this is something that's ongoing to work. This is a piece a few years later, which is almost like the exploded shed except burnt out. And this is a church that's been struck by lightning in Texas. And I have a photograph of it being struck by lightning, because I wasn't there. And I never show pictures of the site, the burnt down site, because I want people to imagine what the church is like, because it's obviously no longer around. And this was a white congregation church that was struck by lightning. And I talked to the minister and asked him if I could have the charcoal for the piece, and asked him what he thought about it being an act of God, the church being struck by lightning. And he said, "Oh, that's fine. God doesn't we have a better church, bigger church?" And so it was like a very celebratory thing. And at the opening of this, I heard about another church nearby that was a black congregation church that had been arsoned by arsonists. And I vowed that I'd make a diptych, which I've just done. It's just finishing exhibition on Sunday in San Francisco. And this is the arson church. This is a church from Kentucky, which was, I've got lots of images of this, which I'm not going to show you, of the minister standing by his church, very upset and in a very much less celebratory mode, because he's not going to rebuild his church. He's very elderly, and his congregation is very elderly, and got intimidated by the layers of petty sort of vandalism and bikers riding up on the steps of the church when they're having the services, and in the end they stopped having services in the church and had them in their various houses. And this piece was a diptych which is called Mass and Anti-Mass. And talk about famous monuments. This is earth that's been excavated underneath the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I don't know if you know, I'm sure you all knew that the Leaning Tower of Pisa has been leaning for a very long time. Almost 1,000 years. Its lean has been getting worse and worse. And the way they decided to correct it was, or to stop it from falling, they didn't want to correct the lean totally, as it would have taken away the toilet, was to excavate a lot of earth from underneath the backside of it and subside it, just slightly. And I managed to get a ton of the soil, and then suspend it, so it's almost like it's the foundations, the underbelly of this very famous monument. But I like the idea of people looking at this work and picturing this monument that's this extraction of this earth has managed to write it by a millimetre, perhaps. And it's called Subconscious of the Monument. Sorry about the quality of this. This is a very nice, good quality photograph, but on my photo it looks pretty bad. And this is another of these early pieces where I used to document the process. And this is 1988, 89. It's called 30 Pieces of Silver. And this is my process, which is where I got on a silver plate and laid it out on a road. And I was thinking of Richard Long when I did this, with his lines of stones. And I was thinking of this, not necessarily being a piece of work, it's just a record of the process, but I think this most probably is a piece of work in its own right, without the resulting installation. And it was a very curious thing, because all these things, these activities, these kind of, they're not performances, I don't really invite people to them. They're kind of private activities, unless just involving me and the people who are helping me. But this one, the steamroller drivers who I'd hired, invited all their families and friends, and they all turned up with cameras, and they all sort of sat around having picnics and taking photographs, because apparently for steamroller drivers this is the fantasy. And that's the resulting installation, which is suspending the fragments in 30 pools. And why I like squashing or destroying things is, I like to kill them off in a way, because they're all too overloaded with meaning already, and somehow by subjecting them to one history, they've been united in this one history, and then they get resurrected, literally, in this case, just above the ground. So it's the depth, the height above the ground is almost the amount of volume I robbed them of in the first place. And this is a recent silver piece. I've just gone back to making work with silver. I've had a very long affair with silver, which I think I'll show you in the next couple of images. But this is in St Bart's Hospital in the breast cancer centre. 6 artists were invited to make work for this new building, which I'm making a piece of work for a breast cancer waiting room with a very loaded space. Pairs of objects, one intact and one squashed, suspended just off the ceiling. It's called Still Life with Reflection. But what I did like is this idea of trompe l'oeil, that you get the squashed objects look much more like the object before it was squashed, because you can only see the object head on. You don't really, it looks very abstract, but then you get the squash reflection, you can see what the object once was. I'm making a lot of work about suspension and silver, and suspending things on wires for years. I decided to make objects into wire. And so this is called Measuring Niagara as a Teaspoon. This is a silver teaspoon that's been made in the height of Niagara Falls. And I like this idea that people looking at it will get the image of Niagara Falls as this kind of tourist spot. And the teaspoon obviously is a very ubiquitous thing, but it's like this interface between culture and nature. And this is the kind of measurement in between. This is a pair of goblets which a friend of mine gave me, which have a lot of tarnish on them, and she said, "Oh, perhaps you might want to squash these for your work." And she said they were a wedding present, and I don't want them anymore. Now she's divorced. And I said, "Oh, wow, I love the tarnish. How long did that take to accrue?" Well, 20 years since I got married. And she obviously hadn't polished them. And somehow the tarnish seemed to be like an object. It seemed to be like and I showed this, I think I showed this here. I had a show in Chapter in 96, and it's called Avoided Object. And actually it spawned a whole series of small works. I think all my work would be called Avoided Objects. I'm not exhibiting the goblets as much as the tarnish on them. And so it's called 20 Years of Tarnish, and in fact it's wedding presents. But it will always be 20 years in tarnish, because in 100 years' time it'll still be 20 years of tarnish. And then that made me want to collect tarnish itself as an object, which I think I showed these tarnishes in a photographic museum in Montreal, I think it was, but in the photographic show. And this idea of this silver trace on fabric somehow bears some relation to photography. But this is a very phallic one. This is James Barry, who invented the Barry knife, who died at the Alamo with Davy Crockett. But I just showed this one because I like the image on it. It's almost like the subconscious of the object. And then there's a whole, gallery of these personalities. So I'm gone around polishing famous people's silverware and taking their tarnish and leaving them very shiny. And I've got their tarnished reputations. And I called the whole series Stolen Thunder because I'm stealing their fame in a way. It's only interesting because it's Nelson's, candelabra, or Henry VIII's armour, or Charles Dickens's spoon. And this is a piece of photographic silver. This is silver reclaimed from the photographic process into a sheet. And I found this. This is another piece that I showed here, and it's called The Collective Death of Images. And it's a series of silver plates made by some guy in his garage, where he reclaimed all the photographic silver from pits, and it made their own images. So this is just all the 1,000 lost little bits of positives in photography. And I'm sure all that's dying out now because we've got digital images, but I like the idea that Clerkenwell in London has got silver-lined sewers because of all the photographic silver that's been washed down over the years. This was shown here too. It's one of my pornographic drawings. So called because it's made from ink. And I made an ink out of chocolate pornography that was given to me by the Customs and Excise. They confiscate all this pornography, and when I was here doing this show, I worked with the Cardiff Customs and Excise and asked them if I could have things they'd killed off, things that they got rid of, because a lot of my work was about things that had been killed off. And they gave me a great big bag of pornography on the first day, you know. And it took me about 2 or 3 months to get a big bag of burnt drugs, several £1 million worth. And I thought, well, why did you give me pornography on the first day and drugs, you know, it took me 2 or 3 months? And they said, oh, well, because that's much more symbolic. And I thought that was kind of quite interesting to do this. Although these things were killed off, it was more difficult for them to give me. So basically these are Rorschach plots. But it's very funny. The Tate Gallery bought some of these off me, and they wrote to me and said, oh, we'd love to see some of your pornographic drawings, you know, because we think we might purchase them. And the curator was asking me, saying, that, you know, that the body prints, you know, he thought these were made off parts of the body and pressed onto paper, so they weren't. And I didn't mind, because I thought it was all about projection anyway. The next few slides are an installation, a collaboration I did with Tilda Swinton at the Serpentine Gallery in 1995, which also helped with, you know, encourage this whole series of small works. Tilda Swinton, who then was a sort of famous actress in terms of the art house cinema, in terms of Derek John films and being in Orlando, and now she's gone into Hollywood, and now she's playing the Ice Queen in Narnia stories. So she had an idea that she wanted to make a performance as an actress, sleeping as Snow White in a glass coffin, and allowing people to come and see her. And through our collaboration, this changed into her sleeping as herself in an installation that I made out of things I borrowed from various museums. So she slept in this glass case for 8 hours a day for 7 days, and people would come and look at her. And around her, these other glass cases with objects laid out in them, which looked very ordinary and boring until you read the caption. And this one was, this is a pillow and blanket off Freud's couch, and it was actually laid out like a bed. Sorry, I haven't got a slide of that, but so it looked like Tilda might have just got up and gone to the loo or something. This is a feather used by Charles Dickens to write his last novel. Queen Victoria's stocking, with a nicely darned tiny hole in its heel. Next to Wesley, the founder of Methodism Spurs, so it's almost like a few things are paired up. All these relics belong to dead people, and they all had varying degrees of fame, so people would know, it's a bit like the Niagara Falls, they would know the stories somehow, all the stories were there. And I chose people like Freud and Victoria and Dickens because they're Dickensian, Freudian, Victorian. The Churchillian, half chewed cigar by Churchill's. Saved by his secretary. She retrieved it from an ashtray, you know, just stubbed it out because it had a famous treaty being signed, so he kept it as a souvenir. And all the thousands of cigars that he smoked over his life, only 1 or 2 remain there. Got his teeth marked for it. Napoleon's Rosary. Lee Miller's camera. She was a famous photographer. She photographed for Vogue, so this camera's taken some of the most beautiful photographs the most beautiful things in the world, and then she went to Dachau, and she was a war photographer, and she photographed the most awful things in the world with this camera. So this camera's seeing both sides of the story. And also she was very photographed herself. She was a great beauty, and she's a muse of Man Ray. The eye on the metronome. Crippen, Dr. Crippen, he was a famous murderer. He poisoned his wife, and these are his antidotes, which spawned a whole series of poison and antidote drawings which I made. I made poison black ink with snake venom, and then made an antidote drawing which is made from white ink and the anti-venom. So you could poison yourself in one drawing and save yourself in the other. It's got to the Antarctic's last provisions, which were found in the tent with him, which are things he couldn't really eat, like salt and curry powder. Charles Babbage invented the computer. He's got a lot to answer for. His brain, and beside him in the same case was Faraday's spark apparatus. So it's almost like a Frankenstein monster that's been made out of all these bits. And Tilda was the only living thing in the show, and she was almost like the beating heart, still present. And this is a drawing kindly lent to me by Susan Butler and Ian Walker, which is called Sadie's Drawing, and it's in the show. It's the only sort of en-provenance piece, that seems like a mystery, like the unknown soldier. And it's just made by a cat jumping in and out of the window. Their cat that would scratch the wallpaper, so they put a piece of card up to protect the wallpaper. This is 3 years' work. And then when the cat died, they framed it up as a kind of memento of her life story. I somehow don't know why it bears relation to photography, but it seems to. And then after working with all these relics, these famous relics, it's great to be able to hold the pillow that, Freud's patients put their heads on. And when I was touching this pillow, through the pillow were poking these little tiny sharp bits of feather. The way all feather pillows seem to have little bits poking out. And I asked the director of the museum, I said, well, if these little feathers fell out of the floor in the museum, would you just vacuum them up, or would they be kept as museum objects? And she said, well, we must just vacuum them up. So she allowed me to take the 2 or 3 that were poking out the pillow about. And I put one on a glass slide, and this was shown here too. And I projected it anamorphically along the wall, so it looked like it was being shot from a bow and arrow. So it's a very benign little feather, which is heard as much as Freud, was suddenly becoming a lethal weapon. Which made me go on to making a series of feather photograms. I collected feathers from various places. This is a feather that went to the top of Everest in Rebecca Stevens' jacket. She was the first British woman to climb Everest, and she had a down jacket, so there's been more feathers that have gone to the top of Everest than people. Birds can't fly that high, it's too high an altitude. So she gave me some feathers out of a jacket, and I made a photogram of the feather. And there was feathers from Benjamin Franklin's attic, Freud's pillow, I've got another one. There was a raven feather from the Tower of London. I was trying to borrow all the ravens from the Tower of London for an exhibition, but they wouldn't let me. Because if ravens leave the tower, the monarchy will fall. This is, and because this ongoing preoccupation with these kind of cliched objects, one of the most cliched objects, I suppose, is Einstein's blackboard, or the idea of Einstein with his equations. And the Museum of History of Science in Oxford have got a blackboard that's got some of his equations from his theory of relativity lecture he gave there in 1931, I think it was. And so I asked him if I could photograph the blackboard through a microscope. And these are some of the images. So these are parts of his equations. The equations are very neat and completely impenetrable. But somehow by looking at it through a microscope, they suddenly became very porous and sort of, understandable somehow. And I just thought, well, actually, if I'd looked at them through a much more highly magnified electron microscope, I might be able to see all the little creatures that the chalk's made up of. This is one of the objects I borrowed from the Maybe but didn't show. It's a record that belonged to Hitler, and so this is a photograph taken of the grooves. The grooves, the record belonged to Hitler. And this avoided object series, which is ongoing, and it's all about things that are not really objects. They might be dust or dirt, or they might be preempted objects, or objects that have lost their identity through a process. And this is a preempted object. This is a pair of Colt 45 guns from the Colt Firearms Factory in Connecticut, and I was doing a project with them, and I was walking around the factory and I saw these kind of blocks of metal. I said, oh, is that the very first stage of the gun? I said, yes. And then, well, the next stage, if you drill a hole or add anything to it, then it becomes a gun. It's given a number, and it's, from then on you have to have a permit to have it. So I said, well, can I have the guns at this point? And could you finish them? Give them the finish, you get the finished gun. So they kind of took out the middle section of the production and gave me these finished guns. And I call them embryo firearms. And then what they were helping me with was shooting things through guns that were bullets. And this was a pearl necklace shot through a shotgun into a suit. It's called Suit Shot by Pearl Necklace. A dress shot by a small chain. So money and pearls, which are kind of nice, benign things, seemingly benign things, become quite lethal when they have the right force behind them. This is talking about fact and fiction. Some things that I like using in my work. And this is a fictional doll from Oliver Twist. And I bought him in Brick Lane Market. And I thought, when I saw his face, I thought, oh, perhaps I should give him a good reason for being so miserable. So I chopped him in half with the guillotine that chopped off Marie Antoinette's head and called it a shared fate. And when I was pregnant 4 years ago, I'm very hormonally challenged. I'm very fearful, because I was 45 when I gave birth, having this baby. I became obsessed with the film Rosemary's Baby, where she gives birth to the devil. And I was doing a show in Turin, and I was trying to find some kind of equivalent to the Turin Shroud, as the tarnishes and all this work seemed very shroud-like. And Mia Farrow, there was a Sotheby's auction, and Mia Farrow had put her nightgown that she wore in Rosemary's Baby, the one that's used in all the publicity stills, and I don't know if you know that image of her holding the knife. It's a very iconic image of her in this blue nightgown. This is the blue nightgown which I bought from this auction. And I didn't really want to show the nightgown. I wanted to somehow remove it, and so I showed it actually in a glass case with a frosted glass and light shining through it. So you see it only as a kind of the light of the blue coming through. And it's called Blue Shift. And of course, and then I bought a Polaroid camera on eBay. I'm very bad photographer. And I got the film out, and I was trying to take this photograph, and the moment she discovers her baby's a devil, it's almost like sympathetic magic, in terms of pre-birth sort of anxiety. And I took, repeated numbers of photographs with this Polaroid off the TV set, and tried to click the shutter at the same time every, I repeat it. I wouldn't put it on freeze, it was just moving. And so we got this moment where she's going, and she puts her hand to her mouth, and I've got numerous images, and they're all different. But it was somehow using this very clunky, primitive camera, trying to capture something that was very like a moment. It's obviously 24 frames a second, and you don't know if you're going to get the right one. Talk about Turin Shroud and imagery. I was nosing around the conservation department of the Tate Gallery, as you do. And in their drawers, they had all these lovely pieces of canvas. And I said, what are these pieces of canvas? And they said, oh, they're backs of Turner paintings. Turner double stretched his canvases when he was, as all painters did in the Victorian times. And when we restretched them, we replaced the double layered canvas. And so these had all this beautiful patina on them, which was accrued by having their backs turned to the wall for 150 years. And so I said, oh, can I borrow them? So I borrowed them for an exhibition and put them behind glass and gave them the title of the painting they came from. So they had Rothsey with Wreckage or Venice at Sunset, and all you got was this kind of Rothko-esque, sort of dirty, almost photographic. And the stretch bar across the middle made them even more Rothko-esque because it had two parts on them. And then you got stains on them, which that stain was caused by a flood in 1927, when the Tate stores got flooded and all these things got damaged. And I loved all the kind of, miscellaneous bits of history there. And these pieces, I call them room for margins. After building up a bit of a rapport with the conservation department, I sort of tested my arm a little bit more. I brought another image of it. I asked if I could borrow The Kiss by Rodin. Rodin's The Kiss is one of these very famous, very well-loved images, that everybody knows what the kiss looks like. But when you cover it in string, which I did, I wrapped it in a mild string, which is Duchamp's, it was almost like combining two French artists' work, Duchamp and Rodin, putting them together, and creating a new piece of work, which is called The Distance, rather than The Kiss. And then in brackets, a kiss with string attached. And it's a shame I haven't got a picture of the reverse side, because actually I turned it round. This is at Tate Britain, and the Tate Triennial 3 years ago. And this rodent always used to sit in the rotunda at the Tate when it was just the Tate. And what I did was turn it round so the back became the front. So the back side of the piece has all these swathes of string falling down. And it was only for a very short period this piece was covered, but there was some public outrage about withholding this kiss from their gaze. And in the sort of turn of the century, when this, perhaps it was in the early 1900s, when this piece was first exhibited in Lewis, the public thought it was just too raucous. They thought it was just a bit too louche, so it was covered up for 2 years. Because it was just considered too saucy. So me covering it up now, 2003 or whatever it was somehow, now we love it and it's a really iconic thing, but somehow it was withholding it for a little while. Last few slides now. These exist only as scans. This is a project I did a couple of years ago called Different Dirt, and I'm a complete eBay addict, as I'm sure quite a lot of you are. And I did a piece a few years ago when I went out digging in Germany with a metal detector, and everything I found underneath the ground I dug up and suspended it the equivalent height above the ground. It was buried, as it were. And what I did, I went on the internet and on eBay, and I found out all these people who are like hobbyists. They go around with metal detectors, they dig up stuff, and then they sell it on eBay. And I'll just show you. And then they take a very quick snapshot of it and they put it on the internet, and then you can bid on it. It'll say where it's being dug up. And I bought 6 lots from America and 6 from Britain. And the American lots, they're piles of. I tried to copy some of the text, because what I did is I took all the text off for the ad. And the American ones are really amazing. They're really long and elaborate and really imaginative, describing what these objects were. And then the British ones are very deadpan, like 10 Roman coins found in Cheshire. And what I did with these objects when I bought them is I scanned them on a scanner with the day's newspaper high up above them, so you can just about make out the newspaper. It's almost like trying to date it, but not quite. Just giving you the background of the time it had above ground. And then I had it reburied again, except in a different country. So Roman coins dug up in Cheshire were buried in Athens, Georgia. Military buttons dug up in somewhere in Britain, buried in Troop of Consequences, New Mexico. Whistles and guns, water pistols actually, dug up in Britain and buried in Birmingham, Alabama, where they'd had race riots with fire hydrants and whistles and guns. And so the image, what you got in the exhibition was an image like this, and then you got the equivalent size text, and then found in Cheshire, reburied in Athens, Georgia. This one was called Medieval to Modern. This is a British find, all laid out beautifully. And then I scanned it, and then it was buried in Las Vegas, that one. Lead soldiers dug up somewhere in America and buried on the site of the Battle of Hastings. That description for that was fantastic. Every soldier was lovingly described. This is a pain bullet. I don't even know the term to bite the bullet, which comes from the American Civil War, where you'd be doing amputations on the battlefields, and there was no anaesthetic. And the way they used to curve their screams was to bite on a bullet. And this is a Vicksburg, Tennessee Civil War bullet that's been bitten. It's got teeth marks on it, and it's called a pain bullet. That's what they call them. And I buried that in Freud's garden. And then I dug a hole to bury it, and I took the earth out and made a drawing out of it, which I called Unconscious, the Monument. And I think that's the last slide. Yes, please. Fiction's abound. It is. There you go. Okay.
Right. presentation by the next speaker, Polly Braden. She's recently been working in China, documenting new factories and new artists, and is currently exhibiting her work at the Museum of Contemporary Photography in Chicago.
So this is a piece of work that myself and David Camperley started work on in November of 2004. It's called Adventures in the Valley, and it's a project along the Lee Valley. It's 58 miles, the Lee Valley, the Lee River, that starts in the Thames in London and goes all the way up to Hertford. And it was a busy commercial way, but now it's mainly a nature reserve and a leisure area. It runs, well, from the planned site of where the 2012 Olympics is going to be, and it passes through industrial estates, and common wasteland, and sports centres, and new built homes, and local council estates. There's a whole mix of people along the Lee Valley, factory workers, and walkers, and residents, and fishermen, and bird watchers, boaters. But right now it's really a time of change and transformation, mainly because of the 2012 Olympics. So I'm going to show you this slideshow that we made ready for the ICA, and it's 12 minutes long. along the way. David and I actually shot this together. And there were 4 styles really. There's one that was more my style. There are some that are more David's, definitely. And there are some that come from working together. And another one where you need both of you to be there to get the picture. We really wanted to make a project that would reflect on the area, that had some kind of social interest, but also would reflect on documentary, so it could be playful and considered. There are lots of different subversions in the actual documentary, but they're only used once, so they're not really, you just see them when they're gone. We tend to make composed pictures rather than narrative ones. Snapshots. They're not snapshots, they're more composed. We use a tripod. We go on our bicycles and take a tripod on the back and set things up, but then sometimes one of us will go off and snap away a bit more, on our own. So when we sequenced them, when we're putting them together, we really made it more into a story to try and talk about this whole space all the way along the Lee River. And since the Olympics came along, it sort of changed a bit because that was really focused in the media, and so of course, that's what people saw when they saw our project. They looked at it but it's about the Olympic area. But it isn't. We never expected to get the Olympics. It was a bit of a shock. So kind of choose the project. And we wanted to move between different documentary approaches. Sometimes, doing portraits based on background research. Sometimes staged naturalism, like the golfers. Sometimes staged anti-naturalism. We also wanted to incorporate different genres of photography, like landscape, research from portraits, reportage, and chance encounters. And these are just some of the different things. I mean, this was very much a chance encounter, we didn't put that blow up Santa Claus on the roof, it was there. And so it was just a question of framing and taking the picture. This one, it comes, the depth of focus obviously is very important to make it quite an eerie picture. If you took it slightly over here, then the limousine wouldn't look like a strange limousine in a strange car all on its own. And also this, a lot of photography comes from talking about different photographers we were looking at the time, and we've been talking a lot about Friedlander at the time. How he frames things up, and I think we had this in our mind when we took the limo picture. Other pictures I think you take because you've taken one before, and you sort of have like that hedge, we've taken that before, and then here you find this hedge and you just it's just there, it's in your mind when you take the picture. This is, perspective. I think these look like they're short, but in fact they are really tall. We only came up to halfway up these reeds. And then, black and white is how documentary was first used. It was all black and white. And we just used this to introduce the project. Then we turned it into colour. Sometimes along the way, you just find things and they look like they're set up. And these were students who were acting for a film that they were making, and we came across them and so used them in our documentary project. But they're actually acting themselves. So I don't know what you'd make of it if you didn't have. We just put the words down there, sort of things about it. And these golfers, they were playing golf, but they looked very dandy to us when they were playing golf, and so we just added to this by placing the golf case there, making them stand a bit more in a dandy pose, and getting them to swing the bat. We were ready, and they swung, and we took the picture. But this picture very much came from being two of us being there, but one would sort of go, okay, you stand there, and the other would be framing up and getting ready to take the picture. This one, obviously, I don't have a golf thing in my hand, so I'm reenacting the golf thing. This is actually a cardboard cutout of a goose. That's the goose. And we used to just carry this goose around with us and sometimes use it to have fun. This is the goose cut out. There he is again. And then this picture, I was thinking about how sound is never really present in photographs. Anyway, and this guy Jamie had been smoking a spliff around the corner, and he was really quite stoned. So I'm just sorry, keen. He was quite stoned when I took that picture of him. And the rest of the factory is very open plan, and you don't see it. But this room was very. It was like a photo. I mean, it's too blown out there, but it's the room that you've been using for 30 years to paint the frames in this factory down the Lee Valley, and so. Anyway, I was thinking about sound after this, and this is a picture that I took in China just recently in a factory, and again it has this very sort of peaceful, this picture has a very peaceful sort of look to it. In fact, the noise in there was it was battering, you couldn't hear a word, and the girls working there 8 hours a day, and the only reason I took this picture that looks very peaceful, and it looks very peaceful, is because she didn't see me taking the picture. I went and spoke to her, I'd been speaking to her, but at this moment she didn't see me taking the picture and she looked sort of tired. And so I was thinking about sound in photographs and how we don't really have sound. And I'm just going to play you a 48-second bit of sound that we took when we were actually taking this picture. And it's taken on an iPod and it's really bad quality, so sorry for the bad quality. It's 48 seconds, sorry about the wind. So that just how, when you're taking pictures, sometimes sound is very important, but when you show them, it's not there. That's what we get. And the other thing that we did is, we did this one picture where we wanted to do it, in films you always have two cameramen, different angles are shown, and in photography it's usually one angle, and that's all you get. And since there were two of us taking the pictures, it was very easy for us to take both angles. And at this point, David and I'm up there on the top, actually, and well, that's me. And we took the picture at exactly the same moment, so that you get the 2 points of view at exactly the same moment. And then the other thing is, of course, when you're doing documentary, well, you can't actually see this at all, but that's all foggy, the one on the left, and this is bright sunshine, and of course you go back to places over and over again. And then you choose the photo that you want to show according to how it turns out, and how you want to what you want it to tell in the sequence of photos. And this is the last one I'm going to talk about. These were a group of kids who were just there, and sometimes when you're doing documentary, you just come across things, and they look like they've been set up, but they haven't. And also kids tend to act, somebody else was saying that, Tricia, and they look like they're acting, but they're actually just there on the rubbish dump working around. And we passed them, took the picture, and they thank you.
some point, the past, with all its realities, its flesh and blood and laughter, its here and now and everyday concerns, left us. It simply vanished, like guests after dinner. The men in their starched white collars and the women with their jet earrings trembling in the candlelight, slipping away even as the last plates were cleared, and the port was drunk, and the fruit was handed around. It had all been ours once, but now it was no more. Nothing identifies memory from ordinary moments. Only afterwards do they claim remembrance on account of their scars. In those days, time lasted twice as long. We had been determined to put history out of sight and to live for the present, with the high-handed certainty that everything would last forever. Only one photograph would mark that year. Only one was significant enough. September, was it 1923 or 24 or 5? I forget. But I do remember it was an abrupt summer. That was how we thought of it. As we walked along the pier with hats and gloves as shields against the wind. How ridiculous to be so cold in September, when on the continent everyone was sweltering and people danced in flimsy clothes. That day, the beach was scuffed and dug with a gallop of horses, and then suddenly, there they were. Jeanette and John, and there she was too, seeping shadow-like across Jeanette's life, a doppelganger, hinting of things to come. Not that we saw it very clearly that day, or in the days that followed, but the truth was, she would influence all that happened, and in the light of forthcoming events, we would be comforted. Another time the fields were threadbare after the harvest. The red earth appeared through a khaki underlay of overuse. It was a small, insignificant sweep of land, nothing much really, worn out, rotated, but well loved. How many times had Agnes painted that view, turning it into dull watercolours and beautiful oils that no one wanted. We had feasted on that patch of land over many summers, but that morning, as I glanced up, there was John, looking so hopeful, so ready for action, wearing the dark green pullover his sister had made for him. All summer she toiled over the thing, dropping stitches, picking them up again, knitting her young girl's thoughts backwards and forwards, weaving it into arms and neck and waistband. Eventually, it was finished. It's a triumph of wool, mind over wool, Selwyn said. And John, wearing it seriously in the heat, day after day, was up with the lark, waiting for the cart to bring in the milk. John would not be parted from it. I recall thinking how the air smelt of the sea, samphire salty, but with a touch of something rotten. John was full of excitement. He was like Chalky, eager for a walk. Day after day, he waited on that gate for the milk and the egg and cress sandwiches, and a whole morning's anticipation of the sea and lunch unfolded like a wave before him. 5 minutes later, he would disappear to the beach, kicking up the sand behind his feet as he ran. In this way, he grew. Of such moments was that summer made. He was always soaking wet. All summer long, Maud complained. It was as though his feet were glued deeply into the waters of the rock pool, engaging in some mysterious private rite. Later on, or maybe it was on a different summer entirely, the weather became extraordinarily clement, and the children swam every day and played beach golf. We lurched from one picnic to another, and Agnes made ginger beer, and Mrs. Saunders gave us fresh eggs every morning, and ham and cold chicken pie. It was a feast, Selwyn would groan whenever the chicken pie came out. "Not more pie," he would bellow, throwing up his hands. But he always ate a piece and washed it down with the ginger beer. Then he would read Dickens to us, those of us who could sit still. John, of course, vanished, taking Chalky with him. "Back to that damn rock pool of his," Selwyn would say, in a half-annoyed, half-jokey way that worried Jeanette. "What's he got in there, jellied eels?" Then Maud would start, worrying that he would catch cold. But Agnes would shout, her voice carrying in the wind, "Oh, don't be silly, Maud, it's too fine a day for that. The boy's only shrimping. Leave him alone." "Only shrimping? Only shrimping? Well, where's his net?" Selwyn would growl. "Oh, when you look at Jeanette," Maud would say in horror, "she's sitting on the seaweed in that dress." But wasn't that Jeanette all over, not caring about the dress or the seaweed or the tide coming in? "We've got her hat again. Where's her hat?" said Maud, unable to let it go. Jeanette merely frowned at us all from a safe distance. "I'm not coming back," she said. "I'm not, ever." Maybe if she had been left to do as she pleased, things might have been different. But we went on in this way, all summer long, squabbling and listening to Great Expectations and Bleak House, and then, the year after that, David Copperfield. It was the summer before John became a boarder. Years later, we wondered, why didn't we go to the lighthouse? Why did Selwyn always decide everything? It would be unthinkable now. Now we would simply seize the moment. But of course, now we had hindsight. At the time, no one would argue with Selwyn. He was too pig-headed, and Maud was no match for him. So the days went by, and other boats ploughed across the bay as John grew tall and grumpy and silent. While Selwyn kept shouting, the sea was unsafe, and look, wasn't there a storm brewing? The sea, he said, was as deadly as the barrel of a gun, and as dangerous. It was absolute nonsense, of course. There was no storm brewing all summer long. The storms came later. But foolishly, we said nothing, gathering together our bouquets of lost opportunities, scattering our discontentment like seaweed across the rocks. Jeanette did not appear to care. She posed like a starlet on the seaweed, just as the tide was going out. What was she thinking? That Selwyn was an old fool, perhaps? That her mother was an even greater fool for not resisting him? In those days, Jeanette had only 2 looks for the camera. Both of them hid her thoughts successfully. John grew, seamlessly rushing from one summer to the next. At some point he had stopped shrimping, but nobody noticed. We saw what we wanted to see, which, as it turned out, was conveniently what we had always seen. Even when it was no longer there, we let the thing continue in our minds. John in long trousers now, taking a different dog for a walk, but we hardly registered the difference. He was still little John, taking the dog for a walk. The mind has endless shutters for every occasion. It lies in wait, ready to slam down on us, ready to fool us. They called the house Joy Cottage. Who would have given it such a name? I always suspected Selwyn. Only he was capable of such irony. Think of the responsibility that came from such a name. Did he stop to think of the effect it would have on us? How impossible, in fact, it was to live up to such expectations. This house of ours, for all our summers, well, at least for the decade. So there it was, with its simple tranquility, its mahogany shine, its lilac, and its bowls of fruit. The light from the window gave the apples a waxen glow. It cast shadows on the Venetian blinds, and it gave the rooms a secret life of its own. Even in those days, Joy Cottage was out of its own time, Nothing disturbed the sea-damp walls. Maud loved it the most. Agnes would look at her, resting in her chair, and say, "Oh, look, at last she's taking it easy. About time too. Why don't you children go out and live in peace? Let her enjoy the moment." We all laughed, and for once we did as we were told. For she was the thing we loved, and as always the thing that Selwyn destroyed. I remember her holding together the days of that very last summer with astonishing simplicity. She was the keeper of all our needs, all our yearly struggles. It was she who watched as we splashed through the shallows of the Atlantic Ocean, her arms full of towels, knowing all the while that she could no longer follow where our youthful voices travelled. Beautiful, sad Maud, the link that both bound us and broke us. It was such a beautiful day, and fresh fruit was still plentiful. One occasion in particular was clearer than the rest. There was no special rhyme to that moment, except perhaps the mustiness of wasp-ending heat. We were all there, squinting at the sun in true British acknowledgement of this luminescent light. Maud and John, of course, and Eddie and Evelyn and Phyllis. And even as our picture was taken, Jeanette, changing unnoticed before our eyes. Behind us was a great bank of early autumn dahlias, red and yellow and orange. What would it cost to take us back to that place again? Afterwards, Maud and Partridge discussed the chopping down of the beech wood. "The view will never be the same," she told them sadly. "How are we going to remember the view?" Then they wanted to split the land beside the lake and sell it in two halves. Partridge was adamant that in order to keep the house we would have to sell the land. It would not have been such a hardship were it not for the fact that the lake was included in the plot. But Partridge said the lake would fetch more money. "Money, money, money, that's all we seem to worry about these days," said Selwyn peevishly. "There is bound to be another war," he said. Selwyn had changed. He did not bellow, as he once used to. Was it the thought of war that moved Jeanette to some kind of protest? Was this what caused it? Hers was always a fragile state of being. Of course, there were some clues in those early photographs that we undoubtedly missed. As she waded the shallows or danced on the mounds of seaweed, the traces of these things cried out to be discovered. A casual observer, of course, would not have remarked on it. I was not a casual observer. I was a key player, yet I did not see it. Then she changed. Overnight, you would not think she was the same person. She began to disappear into the heath for hours on end, returning late at night, soaked to the skin, shivering. Sometimes Partridge would find her, sometimes it would be the dogs. And always she would crouch on the ground, muttering darkly to herself. She was listening to the earth singing for one last time, she said. Nothing was left after that. Everything became shrouded in shadows. Day after day, the ordinary movement of sun and light had broken up the past, corrupted its innocence, and disturbed the rhythm of the era. Week after week, the cries of seabirds and the drones of aeroplanes and the barkings of dogs folded themselves around us. Slowly, our memory was eroded away, and for a while it looked as though it might perish. But then I saw that all was not lost, and that the cries of the gulls and the ships hooting and all the light summer voices had gathered together in abundance within these discarded images. All you had to do was look for them, and they were there. Miraculously, time had compressed our thoughts on paper. Then the house with all its memories was packed up, and we were cast out from it. We were to leave. Poor Selwyn, look, he has rust marks all over him. Nowhere else, not even in all the images of the war that I have seen in the newspapers, was it so clear how this thing had bulldozed our lives. After that first loss, our minds were blunted to all the other countless losses. Then, in this image of John, taken last summer, I saw what I had tried so hard to forget. There it was, on his face, incised with the troubled years that were not of his making. The roses were out, a different chalky had just been clipped, and Sally was about to serve tea, but Alison must have taken the picture. Until I looked at that photograph, it had been impossible for me to see how the years had marked him. When had it happened? How had he come from those carefree days to this? When had suspicion become part of his life? Afterwards, Sally brought out the tea and we sat on the lawn with the dogs. It was for the last time. The following day the house with all its grounds was sold. John would not recover. Before he left, he gave me one last thing. I don't know when he took it, but he told me it was sometime soon after we lost Jeanette. He had been staring at the sea, he said, when suddenly a flock of birds, disturbed by the sound of a gun, flew squawking into the air. He had watched them scatter, and he had thought this was what he wanted from his life. Yes, he had thought this was what he would do. The idea of turning the Cruden Bay photographs into an archive happened accidentally. I brought the photographs from a market stall. Some of them were already in an album. The woman who sold them to me for a small sum of money told me they had come from a rather sad house clearance. I gathered from this there were no remaining close relatives. Later on, in a different city, and this time in a junk shop, I found some more photographs. Excitedly, I saw that they were of the same family group. The facts, such as they were written in pencils on the back of all of them. The handwriting was the same as the locations and the names. In 1923, the Maudsley family were living in Almond House in Hampton-on-Thames. They also owned a flat in London and a cottage called Joy Cottage overlooking Cruden Bay. The photographs span the years 1922 to 1965. In order to keep as close as possible to the memories already within the photographs, I decided to use these names in my narrative. So there was Jeanette and John and Maud and Agnes and Partridge, and there was of course Selby. I looked up Almond House and found it still exists, as did Joy Cottage here in Wales. The remaining narrative is mine alone. Most archival photographs are such for a reason. They have some historical significance. Either the event or the photographer is important. Either the quality of the image or its rarity is unquestionable. The Cruden Bay photographs had none of that importance. And yet, for me, that increased their value. I'm interested in the fictionalization of the found and the discarded, and the bringing back of life to frozen images. The written word is a useful and immediate tool for excavating all those small memories that Boltanski talks about. All those things that are housed invisibly in a person. All those small fragments of thoughts that die out with each of us. It is not a question of one medium being greater than another. It is not that the visual material cannot stand alone, we know it can, or that a text is more powerful than an image, but rather that, for me, together, text and image can ask more questions and offer more alternatives in the quest for the past. Thank you.
Okay, the coffee break now. If you could all be back for John Slice's presentation at 4 o'clock.